One evening, Oren is working at his desk when suddenly the group leader tells him that he will be expelled from the group. Oliver tells Oren that he has ignored the power imbalance in the group for some time. He and Oren are childhood friends, and he wanted to stick by him. But Oliver can't deny that keeping Oren on the team would only slow them down. Both Anley and Derek call Oren dead weight and tell him that the team would be much better off without him. Oliver would never say it out loud, but he knows there is some truth to their accusations. Oren is heartbroken as he thinks back to how he and Oliver formed this group 8 years ago and quickly rose to S rank. Oliver makes it clear that Oren's support magic sucks. Oren knows that his support magic has always been mediocre, no matter how much he practiced. But the only reason his spells are so mediocre is because he was originally meant to be a swordsman, but had to convert to support magic to balance the group. Derek reminds him, however, that the only reason Oren had to switch to being an enchanter is because Oliver is much better at sword fighting than he is. Oren knows how to wield a sword and cast support spells, but he is rather mediocre when it comes to his skill level. Oliver reveals that he has already found a replacement spellcaster, so Oren's help is no longer needed. Stunned, Oren heads for the door. As he leaves, Anley tells him that his skills are still sufficient to become an A-rank adventurer, but a pathetic fighter like him is no longer fit to be part of an S-rank party. Oren then decides to tackle the dungeon alone to prove that he is not inferior to them. His sword skills may not be the best, but they are still sufficient to take on a group of goblins alone. Since he is also capable of using support spells, he can buff himself to make his fights a little easier. After finishing off the goblins for the day, he heads to the teleportation crystal to register his card so he can go directly to the 7th floor. Suddenly, he sees another group running towards the crystal, but he prefers not to deal with a group of strangers. However, he hears the group members panicking because they have just been attacked by a group of orcs. A girl in the group has been left behind, so the leader tries to convince himself that leaving her behind was the right choice, because if they had tried to fight, they would all have died. However, Oren overhears the conversation, but he can't stand the idea of someone being abandoned by their group. Oren insults the human scum for letting a member of the group die. One of the group members tries to punch Oren, yelling that they had no choice, but Oren knocks him down and calls him useless. He then asks where the girl has been left. Meanwhile, in another part of the dungeon, the girl is cornered by the orcs. But at the last second, a wind spell repels the orcs, and Oren steps in front of the girl to protect her. The orcs begin their attack, so he counterattacks. Sophia assumes he is a swordsman. But to her surprise, she sees Oren cast a support spell on himself and cut one of the orcs in half. The remaining orcs rush at him, so Oren starts slicing them one by one, and Sophia is stunned. Then Oren makes sure the girl is okay and helps her out of the dungeon. He starts to walk away, but she wants to thank him for saving her. She introduces herself as Sophia Claudel. Oren recognizes the girl's surname, and he also notices the crest on her cloak. Sophia invites Oren to dinner that evening to thank him for saving her. Shortly after, she takes him to one of her favorite restaurants. Oren notices that the sign outside has the same crest as Sophia's cloak. It's pretty clear that she must be a member of the Silver Rabbits clan, one of the most powerful guilds in the kingdom. Suddenly, Sophia sees her sister sitting at one of the tables. Selma explains that she had a meeting nearby, so she decided to come here for dinner. But aside from that, she asks Sophia what she is doing there with a man, because she is too young to have a boyfriend. However, Selma realizes that the man is actually Oren and that they know each other. Selma is the leader of the most powerful S-rank group, as well as the most powerful enchantress on the entire continent. It is thanks to her that support mages are so respected when it comes to forming parties. Coincidentally, she is the same enchantress that Oren's group used as an excuse to kick him out. Selma approaches him and asks him if he thinks it's appropriate to go out with her 14-year-old sister late at night. Oren assures her that she is misunderstanding the situation and that he has no romantic interest in her sister. However, the way he says it angers Selma even more, because she thinks he is saying that Sophia is not attractive enough for him. After learning that Oren saved Sophia's life, Selma apologizes for her rudeness and thanks him for his help. Oren explains to Selma that they met during last month's raid and, since they were both enchanters, they spent a lot of time together, although Oren mostly just assisted Selma. Selma tells him that he was a great help, but that was to be expected from someone who is part of the heroes group. However, Oren tells her that he is actually no longer part of the heroes party. Selma is shocked to hear this because she cannot imagine why the party would want to get rid of someone as useful as Oren. Selma asks him if he would be interested in taking a job. Oren tells her that he actually wants to venture out on his own for a while, so he cannot join her clan. She replies that she only needs someone to join an educational expedition that her clan is organizing tomorrow. Furthermore, he will be well paid for his efforts and only needs to focus on teaching the new recruits. They plan to spend about 3 days on floor 50 and already have a group of A-rank adventurers leading the expedition. Oren, however, reiterates that he has just been expelled from his group for being a weak caster compared to Selma and does not want to limit himself to support magic again. So he politely declines her offer. Sophia, however, begins to beg him to reconsider his decision because she would feel much safer if Oren stayed with them. He tells her that he will only accept if he is allowed to fight with a sword because he no longer wants to limit himself to spells. Selma is shocked because she has never seen a spellcaster switch to fencing. She tells him that if he decides to join the expedition, he should report to the clan headquarters early tomorrow morning. Before returning home, Oren makes one last stop at a weapon shop and seems to be quite familiar with the owner. The old man makes him a cup of tea and thanks Oren for his help, because since he started recommending this place, business around here has been booming. However, Oren informs the old man that he has been expelled from the heroes group, and he wants to apologize for no longer being able to help the old man in his business. However, the man tells him that whether or not he is part of the heroes group, he is still the same person and has already done a lot to help him. Oren may no longer be a hero, but in his heart, he still is. The next morning, Oren goes to the clan headquarters and meets with the president, Vince Briers. Oren says he will need some more details about the expedition before deciding whether or not to participate. Selma explains that the expedition will target the 51st floor, but that on the first day they will only go up to the 21st floor, then slowly descend to the 51st. Before Oren arrived, Selma met with Vince in advance to discuss how foolish it was for the group of heroes to chase Oren away. It is true that the power of Oren's support spells is below average, but his casting speed is excellent, at least 4 times faster than Selma's. In addition, Oren uses multiple spells simultaneously, constantly analyzing the battlefield to decide the best move to make. Returning to the present, Selma finished explaining the details of the expedition, revealing that there will be 10 different groups of rookies with 5 seniors, including Oren and Selma. Newbies should handle things on their own, but if something unusual happens, the seniors will step in to make sure no one gets hurt. Oren wonders why there are only 5 seniors, though. Normally, with an expedition program like this, one would want to minimize risks by hiring as many bodyguards as possible. Selma makes up an excuse, saying she doesn't want to make things too easy for the newbies, but Oren knows that's not the real reason. They must have some secret goal they're trying to achieve, but he decides to drop the question and accept the situation anyway. As part of the deal, Oren will receive 2 gold coins in advance and another 10 upon completion of the mission. The next day, Oren shows up at the dungeon entrance and sees a group of new adventurers getting ready. A few moments later, Selma and Sophia arrive as well. Sophia offers to introduce Oren to everyone, and she takes him to meet the other 3 seniors, who introduce themselves as Anthem, Bernard, and Kathy. Both Bernard and Anthem are defenders, while Kathy is a healer. Oren thinks this whole thing is a little strange, since he is supposed to use his sword. This means that Selma intended to go ahead without a frontline attacker. In reality, Selma is really desperate. After all, her clan has made no progress in the last year. So, she wants to achieve something as soon as possible, even if it's a little risky. She changes the subject and introduces Oren as the backbone of the operation, telling everyone that he has already reached the 94th floor, so they can trust him. The newbies are all amazed by Oren's achievements, especially when they find out that he was a member of the heroes group. Oren, however, is not used to so much attention, so he doesn't know how to react. Selma tells Oren that she would like him to accompany Group 10, because they are the most promising newbies in the group. Oren discovers that Sophia is a member of the group, but he doesn't understand why there are only 3 members in this team when all the others have 4. Logan confidently states that it is because none of the other newbies can keep up with him. He introduces himself as the group's charmer and says that one day he will surpass Selma. Then Caroline introduces herself and she has the role of defender of the group, but Oren is a little confused because she doesn't seem to be wearing any armor or carrying a shield. Caroline explains that she doesn't use those things and instead dodges attacks when monsters get too close. Oren now understands what Selma meant when she said this group was special. But on the bright side, there's also Sophia, who is the most normal student he could hope for. Shortly after, they all enter the dungeon together. Caroline wonders why someone from the Heroes group has joined their expedition, since the Silver Rabbit clan is one of the Heroes group's rivals. Oren clarifies that he is no longer part of the Heroes group, and Caroline is shocked to hear this. A few minutes later, as they are crossing the cave, a pack of wolves suddenly appears behind them. Oren, however, is not worried because he has already left a series of traps as they entered. This way, they won't have to waste time watching their backs. We finally understand why Oren has been labeled useless, because he doesn't tell anyone that he is basically protecting their backs all by himself. As they advance through the dungeon, Oren has the opportunity to observe how Logan fights, and he is genuinely impressed. However, for the leader of the group, Logan is unable to give instructions, but hopefully he will improve with time. As for Caroline, she has the speed necessary to be a dodging-type defender, but she is a little too aggressive because as soon as she sees a monster, she lunges at it. Sophia, on the other hand, is not as impressive as the other two, but she is still quite skilled as an enchanter and has no obvious flaws in her fighting style. Fortunately, by the end of the first day, they managed to reach the 21st floor of the dungeon. Oren tells Selma that she was right about their potential, but that they don't work well as a team, especially Caroline. Selma, however, already knows that they are hotheads, hoping that they will improve in the future. The next day, Oren wakes up to a terrible scene. The group of heroes has made public the fact that he has been expelled. He knew it would happen, but he would have preferred it to happen after the expedition was over, since all the students admire him because they thought he was a member of the group of heroes. He then heads to the dungeon entrance for the second day of the expedition. As he walks down the street, he is suddenly called by Luna. She is also a member of the hero group and has always been very kind to him, but she was away when Oren was expelled. Luna asks him to return to the hero group because they need his strength, and Oren is surprised to hear this. She came looking for him only because she knows how important Oren was to their team. He doesn't want to return to the group of heroes, and even if he did, with the news already out in the open, it wouldn't make sense for him to return now. Luna hasn't read today's newspaper yet, so she doesn't know what it says about him. She reminds him that they promised to conquer the Great Labyrinth together. This memory brings back many painful memories for Oren, because this was a promise that he, Luna, and Oliver made a long time ago. However, it was Oliver who kicked him out, so now it will never happen. He always hoped that the three of them would remain friends forever, but there is no going back. Here are the first and second episodes of this new anime. What would you like to be? A swordsman, an enchanter, or a defender? If you want to see the rest of this new anime, comment, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest. See you next time.